Picture this. Hundreds of police officers storming a newsroom at dawn, seizing computers and freezing company assets, while residents line up before sunrise to buy a newspaper's final edition before it disappears forever. This happened in Hong Kong, once the crown jewel of Asia, a gateway where East met West and money flowed freely. Today, it's a financial hub bleeding its own talent by the tens of thousands every year, while its own top judges resign rather than stay. This wasn't inevitable. Hong Kong was engineered, decision by decision, into a cautionary tale. This is how to ruin a city. Step 1. Make sure nobody can actually afford to live there. Hong Kong's government owns almost all the land in the territory and releases it to developers through auctions designed to maximize revenue. That single decision, repeated for decades, created one of the most extreme housing shortages on the planet. After a housing crash in 1997, the government halted public housing construction entirely to prop up falling prices, and supply never caught up again. The result today is almost unbelievable. The average Hong Kong resident lives with just 161 square feet of personal space, roughly the size of a single parking spot. Developers responded to soaring prices not by building more, but by building smaller, inventing what the market now calls nano-flats, units of 200 to 300 square feet, often with no separate bedroom and no window in the bathroom, still selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars. In one recent year, a record 13% of all apartments sold in the territory were smaller than 260 square feet, up from almost nothing just a decade earlier. More than 200,000 residents live in subdivided flats so cramped they're known locally as coffin cubicles, tiny partitioned rooms barely large enough for a bed, sharing bathrooms and kitchens with dozens of strangers under the same roof. This is a wealthy, developed territory that chose, year after year, to treat land as a revenue tool for the government and a profit engine for a handful of powerful developer families, instead of a basic need for the people who actually live and work there. And it worked exactly as designed. Government land auctions kept generating billions in revenue every single year, even as ordinary residents were priced into apartments smaller than a prison cell. Step 2. Silence the free press. For decades, Hong Kong's entire identity as a global financial hub rested on one promise. It wasn't quite mainland China. Different laws, different freedoms, a free press that international businesses, bankers, and talent trusted enough to build their lives around. That distinction was written into the very handover agreement that returned the territory to Chinese rule, promising a high degree of autonomy for 50 years. Following mass protests in 2019, Beijing imposed a sweeping national security law in 2020, criminalizing vaguely defined acts of secession, subversion, and foreign collusion, with sentences up to life in prison. The consequences arrived fast and visibly. In 2021, hundreds of police officers raided the newsroom of Apple Daily, the territory's biggest pro-democracy newspaper, seizing computers and freezing more than $2 million in company assets under a national security investigation. The paper folded within days. Its final edition sold out within hours, with residents lining up before dawn just to buy a copy of a newspaper about to disappear forever. Its founder was later sentenced to 20 years in prison, in part over a fraud charge involving subletting a small corner of his own company's office. A financial hub had just watched its own government shut down one of its most widely read newspapers over politics, live, in front of the entire world. Step 3. Hollow out the rule of law. Free press wasn't the only thing sacrificed. In 2022, two senior judges from the United Kingdom's own Supreme Court resigned from Hong Kong's Court of Final Appeal, stating publicly they could no longer sit on the bench without appearing to endorse a government that had departed from the values of political freedom and free expression. These weren't junior officials. One of them was the sitting head of the UK's entire Supreme Court. For a city whose global business reputation was built almost entirely on the promise of a trusted, independent, British-style legal system, this was as damaging a headline as it gets. When a city's own top judges quit rather than stay, that's not politics as usual. That's a financial hub actively dismantling the two things, an independent judiciary and a free press, that convinced global capital to trust it more than mainland China in the first place. Step 4. Watch your own people walk out the door. The numbers that followed are staggering. In a single year alone, more than 113,000 residents left the territory, the biggest population drop since records began over 60 years ago. Since 2021, more than 300,000 people have emigrated through the UK's special visa scheme for Hong Kong residents. Nearly 3% of the entire population gone. This wasn't retirees cashing out. Around 70% of those who left were between 25 and 44 years old, often bringing young children with them. Doctors, engineers, bankers, the exact demographic every city needs most to keep functioning. By 2024, 85% of Hong Kong employers reported struggling to recruit skilled professionals, up sharply from just a few years earlier. Even the withdrawals from the territory's own pension system spiked, as departing residents cashed out billions in retirement savings on their way to the airport. A financial hub cannot survive on skyline alone. It survives on talent choosing, again and again, to stay. And Hong Kong spent years giving that talent every reason to leave instead. Here's what makes this genuinely painful to watch. Hong Kong has everything a global city could ask for. A deep water port, world-class infrastructure, decades of accumulated financial expertise, and international trust. It was, for generations, the undisputed bridge between China and the rest of the world, the place where Eastern manufacturing met Western capital, and both sides made fortunes. Officials continue to insist the city remains as competitive as ever, pointing to headline investment figures while quietly competing for the exact same role Singapore has been steadily absorbing instead. Singapore didn't do anything particularly clever. It simply offered political stability and openness at the exact moment Hong Kong stopped being able to guarantee either. Multinational banks and companies that once automatically placed their regional headquarters in Hong Kong now openly weigh Singapore as the safer long-term bet, a comparison that would have sounded absurd only a decade ago. Every advantage Hong Kong built over a century can be undone by a government convinced that control matters more than the trust it took generations to earn. It's not that Hong Kong is doomed. The port still runs. The banks still operate. New arrivals from mainland China have even replaced some of the population lost to emigration. But an entire generation of young professionals who might have built careers, families, and futures there instead built them somewhere else. And the talent that already left isn't simply going to reverse course because the headlines calmed down. A masterclass in taking one of the most valuable pieces of real estate on earth and giving its own people every reason to leave. Hong Kong, the gold standard for turning a world-class city into a cautionary tale, one bad decision at a time.